A lot of young men are dealing with a situation they should not be dealing with at all. I mean, they're scared, you know. I even had like quite a few guys reach out to me through Reddit, and they're just like, like when will I recover? How long am I going to recover? And I'm just like we don't know. No one knows.
Right.
And that's obviously not something they want to hear. They think a urologist can fix it, but they can't. Like they can't. Like we just don't have the ability yet. Um, so
Right.
I mean, it's a terrible thing to go through, especially you don't want to hear like, oh, then maybe I won't get better. Um, but like that's the importance of like funding the studies and finding the underlying mechanism, and hopefully we can just get a treatment or a cure and just move on with our lives, go back to normal.
What is going on, guys? This is Mark Millick here with the Moral Medicine YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking to Michael. Michael is a PFS patient who's had PFS for about 9 months now. He's kind of a unique case here because he took not just finasteride, but also dutasteride as well. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess we'll just jump right into it, man. So tell me, what's your
Yeah.
story? What was your life like, I guess, before you took finasteride?
Before I took finasteride, it was a pretty normal life. I mean, I worked just like any other human being on this earth. I had a girlfriend at the time before I took finasteride, and like I just had like a very active, just normal relationship, sex life. Like you don't think about sex issues at all. It was just like very normal life. I'd go to school, go to work, come home. I would be in my early 20s at the time. So
Mhm.
you would just try to figure out your life path, see what you're gonna do.
Sure.
Just typical stuff. I mean, I went to the gym. Just a very normal everyday life. It was a good life. I mean, I have great parents that are extremely supportive. I have a lot of good friends. So I mean, it was a very satisfying, good, happy life.
Yeah, absolutely. So how old were you when you got prescribed finasteride then?
Um, it was 2020. I'm 27 now, so I think I was about 23, maybe 24, 23, going on 24, something like that.
Sure. Sure.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So how did you get it? Did you go through a telehealth company? Did you go straight to a doctor, dermatologist? What was the process with that for you?
Yeah. So when I was like 19, I did go through to a dermatologist about my hair loss. I started losing hair at like a very young age. Not very noticeable, of course, but like a 15, 16. And then like when I was 18, 19, I went to go see a dermatologist, and they said just use minoxidil. There's nothing else out there. So my experience with it was through Kaiser in California.
Sure.
Um, it was good. But then I went through Hims to get on finasteride because I had like a very aggressive form of hair loss, retrograde alopecia, where even like the sides thin.
Hmm.
Um, and it was nothing. Hims, you just pretty much say you want to get on finasteride. They ask if you have any prior health issues, which I didn't, and you pretty much just get the bottle next week or two. It's super easy. So
Easy.
that's how I got the finasteride.
Hmm.
Um, Dutasteride was, I can't remember the clinic on top of my head, but it was like through an online clinic.
Sure.
Um, Super easy. I mean, they were compounding dutasteride. They would have like 15% minoxidil. Um, and all it was just like, hey, can I get a prescription? And then just like, yeah. And a doctor signs it, and then next thing you know, I go to Walgreens, just pick up a prescription of dutasteride.
Were these both the oral versions or were they the topical?
Both oral versions.
Okay, gotcha. I can tell you, I mean, I can relate to your story about the Hims one. I mean, I went to Hims, man. It took me probably 3 minutes to actually make to register an account and to actually get prescribed the medication. It was really that easy. I recall I was at my friend's house and I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror and I could actually see because it was harsh lighting, I could see the top of my scalp at that point in time. I had like this mini panic attack. So I went to the Hims website like immediately and made an account, registered, and within 5 minutes I got prescribed the medication. It was like the easiest thing in the world. They just hand it out like it's candy, man. It's
No,
crazy.
it's easy. It shouldn't be that readily available, especially if it messes with your hormone profile. They
Oh
love
yeah.
to market it as just messing with DHT and lowers DHT, but as we both know, it messes with like a lot of neurosteroids, and who knows. I saw a study saying something with dopamine, it messes with a lot of in the endocrine system. So
What's kind of frustrating too is that we know it does have an effect on hormones. There is a lot of speculation that it affects the androgen receptors. We just don't have the funding right now to do more
um,
investigating with all that. And so a lot of these deniers, they ride that, because we don't have, a lot of great studies out here right now, but obviously we're in the process of doing that. But if we just had more funding, we could absolutely investigate this and get to the bottom of it.
Definitely.
So having said that, what was your experience like when you were taking the medication?
All right. So when I first took the medication, I think I noticed like minor erectile dysfunction in the very beginning. I know for sure lower libido. Um, but I just never put two and two together because everyone talks about how great the safety profile is on these drugs. So that was just finasteride. So even when I noticed like those side effects from the finasteride, I mean, obviously when you're going through hair loss, when you're early 20s, you would pretty much do anything you can to like stop that because that's just sucks. I mean, who wants to go bald at 21 years old, 22 years old, right?
For sure.
Um, so yeah. I also noticed like when I started taking dutasteride, which was 6 months after February 2020, um, it was a very noticeable cognitive decline.
Mm,
And that was also the very first thing that I noticed getting off of it was
mm,
like after a month, how much crystal clear my head felt, how much more I can focus. I felt a lot less tired.
yeah.
Uh, so, and then with dutasteride, I never really monitored my morning erections ever in my life until like recently, but I'm willing to bet that I had no morning erections. My libido was flat, super low on dutasteride. Like I
Sure.
could still get the job done,
Yeah.
but it was just like almost felt like a chore. Like you just never wanted to like have sex with your partner, or just like have sex in general, and you would just think like, I'm getting older, I'm maturing into a man. Maybe I just need more of an emotional connection.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I mean,
You sort of play these mental gymnastics with yourself. You almost gaslight yourself. Like, wow, I'm
exactly.
getting older. Well, you're what, 26 years old? I mean, realistically, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't mean to laugh, but you shouldn't be experiencing that in your 20s,
right.
probably even your 30s for that matter. To lose interest in sex, especially in your 20s, is just it's unheard of.
Right.
So there's obviously something going on. And you may have already said this. How long did you take finasteride for? Then how long did you take the dutasteride for?
Finasteride was 6 months. I felt like it wasn't potent enough to stop my hair loss.
Yeah.
So I moved to dutasteride, and that was 2.5 years. I stopped February 8th, 2023. So
Yeah.
total on all 5-AR inhibitors is about 3 years.
Yeah. And dutasteride obviously being a much more potent anti-androgen than uh
Mhm.
than finasteride is. Um yeah, it's pretty incredible. She took it for that long, and you're kind of playing these mental gymnastics, saying, I'm having these symptoms, but it can't be the dutasteride. I'm just meant to be getting older, and you try to attribute it to anything outside of just being the medication.
Anything,
Yeah,
anything. And
absolutely.
I'm just thinking to myself, like, why am I not attracted to that girl? Why am I not attracted to that girl?
Yeah,
But like,
yeah.
it's just, yeah, you're playing games with yourself and it's ridiculous. And then like, eventually I was just like, it's the damn drug. Like,
I think you made a good point too. I want to highlight this is that the fact is, I mean, hair loss does suck, especially in your 20s.
mhm,
So that's why I think it's so easy for I'll say kids, our age to fall into this trap, right? Because you start losing your hair, and
definitely
what's the first thing you want to do? It's like, well, how can I treat this? How can I solve this? And when you hear about medications like finasteride and dutasteride, you do a lot of research on it. I don't know about you specifically. I was doing research on it, but when you hear about the side effects, you kind of just you put up the blinders. You don't want to
mhm,
tell yourself, well, I could experience sexual dysfunction or low libido. It's probably not going to happen to me, right? And then you take it,
exactly.
and when you do start experiencing it, you play the mental gymnastics. Oh, it's probably something else. It's probably something else. But yeah, people will go through to great lengths to save their hair, man. And I get it. That's why it's so easy to fall into this trap. So I don't want to downplay the significance of hair loss, but obviously after going through PFS, I'm sure you can say that PFS is 1,000 times worse than hair loss could ever be. And you
Yeah.
have to,
I mean, completely.
yeah, and you have to,
I recently shaved my head and it made like next to no difference in my life at all. At
yeah,
all. At all. Nothing has changed.
yeah,
Um, Obviously that's not gonna be the case for, everybody, but
sure.
uh I mean, yeah,
It's more about attitude and having a good personality, if you ask me. I mean, that's really what it boils.
exactly.
Your entire self-confidence shouldn't be contingent on your hair. And again, I understand when you're in your 20s, it somewhat is at times, but it's funny. I've talked to a lot of people who said, yeah, I shaved my head and it was liberating, and my life hasn't changed whatsoever. If anything, their life has improved. So, you can obviously testify to that. So, when you came off the medication, did you experience any new side effects, or kind of tell me the story behind that?
Yeah. So the day before I quit dutasteride, I injected testosterone
Mm.
with, I was thinking that, it would kind of like offset the side effects of dutasteride, which is definitely not the case. So I noticed like as soon as I injected that testosterone, I noticed like a little bit of genital shrinkage, and that scared the hell out of me. And that was like basically my last resort. And I was like, okay, I need to get the hell off this drug. I quit the drug. Um, I noticed like the day of and the next day, it was super hard to get an erection. About 2 weeks after that, it kind of normalized, not to like where you should be functioning normal, but like
Sure.
to a point where like you can get erections with enough stimulation. Um, and then about 2 weeks after that, so like a month after I quit dutasteride, I noticed ice cold genitals, a burning sensation in my penis, and that of course scared the hell out of me.
Right.
Um, I wasn't able to sleep for like a month, maybe like an hour a day. And obviously, if you're not sleeping, you're gonna go nuts, right?
Mhm.
Um, I would definitely have like suicidal thoughts. One of them being like I just could not get it out of my head. Like I just want to fill up a bathtub, go in there and throw a toaster in it. And I it was just playing in my head over and over again for about 2 weeks. And I mean, it finally went away.
Mhm.
And then a couple weeks after that, I would just completely drench my couch with sweat, like so much sweat, man, like in my sheets on the couch. My dad actually thought I was on, he thought I was doing like meth and heroin. I was having withdrawals from that.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that's exactly what he thought because in the beginning, they, my mom, dad, they kind of believed me. They're pretty open-minded people, but they kind of just thought it was like a one-off thing and I was going nuts. But this persisted for months, So
Mhm.
another thing that I noticed is I wasn't able to the worsening of symptoms after eating like certain things, like gluten. If I were to have gluten, like I would not be able to get like my penis up at all. I would not
Yep.
be able to get erections at all. Um, all that eventually subsided after a while. It took a long time though. I'd say like 4 or 5 months. You would like the burning sensation, the cold genitals would kind of just like go off and on. I mean, this PFS is always up and down, up and down, up and down. You'd have a good few days and terrible few days.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, yeah, like it was definitely scary. I was going pretty damn nuts. I was scared. Um, you try to look on the internet, going through a bunch of like Reddit pages, this and that, to kind of like figure out how to reverse this, how to treat it. Um, eventually you're kind of just like, there's no way out of it except for maybe like funding studies.
Mhm.
Hopefully developing a cure.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
eventually a lot of the side effects did subside, and today I'm dealing with minor erectile dysfunction
Sure.
up to this point. So on the 16th of October, it will be 8 months.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, you've been off for about 8 months now, and it took you that
Mhm.
long to even reach a point where you're, I guess, semi-recovered, but you're still dealing with, the persistent erectile dysfunction, even though it's minor at this point. It's
Right.
still affecting you even to this day. Um, did you experience any muscle loss or anything?
In the beginning, I did notice muscle loss a little bit. Um, now that I think about it in hindsight, like I didn't think I was losing muscle, but it was pretty obvious I was. So it was really minor muscle loss, but I noticed that I did get weaker in the gym. That subsided maybe about a month
Yeah.
after quitting dutasteride. So yeah, that was pretty much my only physical symptom.
Okay.
Another thing that like I noticed is like your androgenic stink that you usually have, when your like armpits smell,
Yeah.
um, that was completely muted. Now that's back full force.
Mm.
Um, my acne is back full force.
Yeah.
I get a lot of it on my back. I was a big back acne guy back in
Yeah.
the day. So
Hmm.
all that's returning, like my androgenic stinks work returning. My back is like full of zits. So
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to say, man, because I used to have acne in my face. I'd get a few zits and here and there on my forehead
Hmm.
before I came off finasteride, and I haven't had a zit in like a year and a half. And as weird as it sounds, like I want that back. you know?
Yeah, no, dude. I would look in the mirror, look at my back, and I'd literally be like, "Hell yeah!" And I'd like sniff my pit, and I'd be like, "Oh shit!" Like this is what I'm talking about, you know. And I'd look at my hair, and I'm like, "Oh, great, I'm losing hair," which is like the complete opposite of what you would want in the beginning.
It completely changes your perception on everything. All these things, yeah, you
Mhm.
start about, oh, I hope I don't, I smell like BO, or I got acne on my face or my back, or I'm losing my hair. You would give anything to have these things back after going through
Yeah,
something, because that's an indication that you're healthy, that your androgens are firing properly, that you're in your full masculine state at that point.
right.
Uh, so I get that, dude. It's incredible. I have some of those symptoms myself. Again, I haven't had any acne in 18 months now. I don't have any back knee anymore. Um, yeah, it's a really frightening thing. So and the thing is too, man, so not to downplay your suffering by any means, but you're also a relatively minor case. And to say that the sexual issues, that's a minor thing, like that just shows you how severe this disease really is, and how
Yeah.
symptoms are, obviously, because when somebody
Mhm.
says, "Oh, you had ED," oh, that's no big deal when compared to this guy over here who's practically bedbound. That's a really frightening thing, obviously, because that affects every aspect of your life. When you have ED, man, it affects your confidence, it affects how you perceive yourself, it affects how you go out and you interact with people, because you just don't feel that androgenic flow that you're supposed to be feeling as a.
Exactly.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And for people
And
that,
for like, or go ahead, go ahead.
no, go ahead, man, go ahead.
For a lot of PFS guys, like tadalafil and Viagra does pretty much next to nothing as well, which is just scary as hell. Um, but I know even for some, like Trimix doesn't do anything. So like, what are you supposed to do at that point? You know? Um,
Yep. Yeah, I guess you can get a penile implant. That's like the next step, but who wants to do that ever in their life? And that's not to downplay
yeah,
people who get it. If it works for you, more power to you. But that's not something you want to resort to, especially when you're 27 years old, man. I mean, no, really, nobody in their 20s should be having to take finasteride or tadalafil, or not. I'm sorry, not finasteride, but tadalafil or Cialis or anything like that. It's just crazy.
yeah, it's absolutely insane.
Um, so when you were going through this, did you go to any clinicians or any doctors or anything to have them assess you?
Um, I recently saw a urologist.
Yeah.
Um, and at first I would have a talk with my general practitioner,
Mhm.
and I came with studies. I came with like anecdotal evidence of like what people have been going through. But my GP, he definitely did believe it because he was had long COVID himself.
Mhm.
He has persistent brain fog,
Yeah.
and recently, about I just got back from Europe, so what was that? Friday, Thursday, Thursday. I saw a urologist.
Mhm.
I got Doppler's test done, so he was checking for fibrosis and blood flow and all that, and I guess everything looks normal.
Yeah.
I was talking to him about PFS, and I mean, my urologist and my GP, they definitely believe it. And my urologist says he's never seen a case, but he definitely believes in. He says that it's definitely an issue that's happening in the medical industry as of right now.
Sure.
And that urology department, they will not prescribe finasteride at all, not even for BPH.
Wow.
So
That's good.
mhm, they're totally against it.
I'm glad to hear that. I think the issue is that there's obviously a stigma to be a guy and to be dealing with erectile dysfunction. I think
Yeah.
honestly, it's a lot more common now than people make it out to be, and that's why these telehealth companies like Hims and Keeps, they market towards people in their 20s, and they market tadalafil, Cialis for people. That wasn't a thing 30 years ago. You didn't typically hear about people needed to take those medications when they were in their 20s, and I hope more people start to just step up and go to a doctor and talk to him about this, and tell him, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. There's really nothing to be ashamed of, and it has nothing
Yeah.
to do with you. It has everything to do with this chemical that was prescribed to you, that was put in your body, that you were told was safe. So I hope as time progresses, that more and more people become more comfortable with talking about this, and I think they are. It seems that
Mhm.
every time we turn around, there's a new person who has post-finasteride syndrome, and they're asking a bunch of questions about whether it's ED or brain fog or muscle wastage, whatever it might be. I mean, this is really scary stuff, man. These symptoms, they're almost non-exhaustive. Every time I turn around, there's always some new symptom. It's like I can't believe that happened to him.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy.
Yeah, a lot of young men are dealing with the situation they should not be dealing with at all. I mean, they're scared, you know. I even had like quite a few guys reach out to me through Reddit, and they're just like, you know, like when will I recover? How long am I going to recover? And I'm just like we don't know. No one knows.
Right.
And that's obviously not something they want to hear. They think a urologist can fix it, but you know, they can't. Like they can't. Like we just don't have the ability yet. Um, so
Right.
I mean, it's a terrible thing to go through, especially you don't want to hear like, oh, then maybe I won't get better. Um, you know, but like that's the importance of like funding the studies and finding the underlying mechanism, and hopefully we can just get a treatment or a cure and just move on with our lives, you know, go back to normal.
That's
It's
that's
ridiculous.
that's the plan with me, man. I want to get a treatment as soon as possible, obviously, and just continue with my life and not think about this again because this is a complete nightmare for me, as it is for thousands of the other people suffering in the world with this. It's absolutely insane. So, one of the last questions here: do you feel like you had, the proper information to make a sound decision on whether or not you should take finasteride or dutasteride before you took it? Do you feel like you were provided, all the information about the safety profile and anything on it, or
Not at all. You know, no one really mentions the side effects. They're like, there could be a lower libido, but it won't happen. Um, you know, you search and scout the internet, you do your research. You know, the first couple studies that you find are just like, you know, they're very much on the finasteride side and downplay the side effects, I think. All these YouTubers, I mean, all over TikTok, man, you see like these people going on hair loss journeys. I mean, it's a big thing to, you know,
it is?
uh,
It is.
so I mean, no, definitely not. I think there should be more warning out there, which I think is happening now. I
Yeah.
think if people hear a finasteride, you pretty much hear a PFS. Which is crazy because that just shows you, you know, I mean, how is this rare if everybody's heard of this disease? Like that's
Right.
not how it works, you know?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I think you should have to sign like binding documents before you get prescribed this medication saying, hey, here's the list of things you could potentially experience, erectile dysfunction, muscle loss, insomnia, cognitive dysfunction, all these different things. And if you're willing to take that risk, okay, go ahead and take it. But nobody receives that. You don't get that type
Yeah.
of consent form. Again, you're told you could experience sexual dysfunction or low libido, but it's going to go away upon cessation of the medication. And that's not really how it works, obviously, at least not for a lot of people.
Right.
So it's terrible. Do you have any closing statements before we hop off here, Michael?
I mean, yeah, my heart goes out to all those sufferers, and I think that we all need to put in, you know, more effort to raise awareness and hopefully, you know, fund some studies so that we can get each and every one of us out of this. You know, don't become complacent. You know, tell your story. There's nothing embarrassing about it. I mean, you're a victim of the medical system, and like you know, we have to not let them get away with this. Like your life was stolen from you. You know, speak out, you know, become part of the movement, do whatever you can to hopefully we can get all our lives back. And for those that are thinking about getting off finasteride, really do your due diligence. You know, this is real. Like this is not a joke. This is not nocebo. Like this stuff happens to people over and over and over again. And just, you know, be very balanced on your decision because this does happen. And I mean, yeah, that's all I have.